Welcome everyone to this episode of the Mortgages by Gretchen show, where I talk to real people who are in the field of real estate and in business, who are not only experts in what they do, but also very generous and willing to share their knowledge and their wisdom with us. And the goal of this show is so that we can give information and tips to help you reaching your goals in your business or in real estate, and to take some of the guesswork out of what to do or who to call when you need some help. Today, I have Greg Norris with me, and Greg is a director at Liquid Capital Corporation.
Correct. Hi.
That's Greg. And I've known Greg for, we were just chatting about this, I guess around 5 years, and we connected and determined we both have common interests of helping businesses to reach their goals. And Greg is an expert at finding options for B2B businesses when the bank says no. So I'll let Greg talk a little bit more about him and what he does and his background.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show and a chance to talk indirectly to your clients and people looking for mortgages from you, because I know you do a fantastic job and had lots of positive feedback. So well done, Gretchen. My background, I grew up in corporate, working for small companies like Johnson and Johnson, earlier iterations of GlaxoSmithKline, and helped take a private pharmaceutical company based out of Switzerland, but working at the head office here in Canada, from about a $35 million company to a $100 million company. So lots of experience working in various different departments or cross-functional teams. So I know what it takes to run a business, shall we say. And I've been with Liquid Capital now, and I'm a franchisee of Liquid Capital, which means I'm a business owner, just like the business owners coming to you, Gretchen, looking for money. So I'm an entrepreneur like them, and I know what it's like to be in the trenches on a day-to-day basis. So what we do at Liquid Capital, we're right across Canada and the US. We fund over $3 billion worth of business, and we help business owners grow their business when the banks say no. We do that through 8 different financing tools where we provide money to the business owner, enabling them to take advantages of the marketplace, whether it's rapid growth or buying inventory or just trying to deal with day-to-day operations. And we come in to help without the business owner giving up any equity, as you said, when the bank's saying no. Because a lot of people are used to going to the bank to get money, whether it's the big charters or BDC. And, our industry, the alternative lending industry, has done a lousy job in educating business owners to say there are options out there. You don't have to give up equity in your business. If the bank's saying no, where else can you go? And there's private money out there, but if you do private money, make sure you understand the contract that the private lender is giving you through a lawyer who can understand the language to make sure you're protected. Because I've seen sometimes there are good private lenders, and like every industry, sometimes less good. And you don't want to lose your business to a private lender because you can't fulfill the commitments of your agreement with them. So how we do this, and if you don't mind, I'd like to share a couple of case studies with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that it better conceptualizes what we do, because I like to understand it, not just from numbers, but what does it do to the business and what does it do for the business owner? So one example I'd like to share with you close to home in Ajax is a business called Best Broadcast. And the reason why I'm sharing this with the full name is the business owner loves what we do and wants us to share this information. So we have permission. And so Best Broadcast does audiovisual stuff, and not just like an overhead projector type of thing. They've done BMO Field. They've done York University tennis courts where they play the Canadian Open. They've done Dundas Square. So some major projects a lot of people are aware of, and they do a lot of other businesses like electronic menus for restaurants, for example. So if you go to a chain restaurant and you see these electronic menus up on the wall, chances are that Best Broadcast has been involved. So the background on this company was they're doing well. They have crews to install this, design the engineering, run the hardware and all the electronics to make these machines work properly, this place work properly. And it takes people, and you have to pay the people every 2 weeks or whatever frequency in the month. But their customers weren't paying them for 30, 60, 90 days, just like you experience in any business. You'd love to be able to say, here's my widget, my service, pay me right away, but it never really happens in the business world. They usually take terms and it takes time to get paid. So this was putting pressure on Dave Kipp, the owner of Best Broadcast, because he has to pay his crews, because if you don't pay your employees, they walk, because they need their money to pay their family, buy food for their families, and mortgage, and the roof over their head type of scenario. So they have to take care of their own interests. So you got to make sure you've got the money to pay your staff. So he was, there's always that strife of, how do I manage the business? How do I manage my clients? How do I move forward? And so he couldn't get enough money from the bank to do this. Fortunately, I was introduced to Dave at Best Broadcast. And what happened was, we came in, sized up his business, and said, look, we can help fix this problem by improving your cash flow. And that's the problem you face. It's taking too long to get paid. So how we did that was we bought his invoices, a term called factoring. And people may be aware of it, they may not be aware of it, but what makes us different as Liquid Capital so that we can buy their invoices? No long-term contract. So when the business owner wants to walk away from us, there's no penalty, no commitments, no hidden surprises. So by buying his invoices, we're advancing him money so that he can now pay his crews, buy inventory, operating expenses, whatever he needs to do without having to wait to 30, 60, 90 days. That takes a lot of pressure off of Dave and his team, and thereby enabling him to focus on his business and growing his business. Very happy person, very pleased at what we can do. And not only do we just provide money, but we provide insight. And what I mean by that was, even though they do all these big projects I just described, and smaller ones as well, by me observing what their business is doing, I was able to provide value at no extra cost by suggesting things that him and his team should do from an accounting, from a finance point of view, to help with the cash flow. And as a result of adopting those procedures, again, it's running that much more smoothly. And they're going, we feel more professional as a company dealing with our customers. Very happy client, Dave Kipp at Best Broadcast. The second one I'd like to share with you was, and I like this because, okay, we'll move to the west side of Toronto now. This one's from Brampton. A lady by the name of Claudia Harvey, very bright business person. I like her because she was getting manicures and it cost a fortune. And at the same time, women who get manicures can like to do gardening. This is the case of Claudia Harvey. So she's doing her gardening and she's going, this is self-defeating. I pay a fortune for my nails and I'm ruining them in the garden. This isn't right. So she had a barbecue one night with a bunch of friends, and the ladies were congregating, just like a high school. They were congregating on one side of the barbecue and the men were congregating on the other side of the barbecue. And Claudia goes to her friends and says, we all like these manicures, but it's frustrating like heck to have our nails damaged by gardening. I got an idea. I want to bounce it off you ladies. And the lady said, sure, tell us, Claudia. And so she says, I want to make these little pillow tips to go around the nails inside of a glove. And the glove is designed for a woman's hand, and they'll have little grips on the bottom of the glove so we can grab the tools. So instead of getting big clunky guy gloves, we'll get these women tapered gloves that protect our nails and grip. What do you think, ladies? And the ladies were going, fantastic, Claudia, run with this. So Claudia did. And she had another lady partner, the two co-founders, and they said, what can we do? We got this idea. And they went to China and got a prototype made. And so great. So now they got a prototype. And they said, what can we do now? And they said, let's go to Dragon's Den. And they said, sure. Worst case scenario, we get free publicity right across Canada, Yahoo. Best case scenario, we get a dragon to partner with us and we're off to the races, taking us to the next level real quick. So they did it. And within 3 months of basically starting up and getting this going, they're on Dragon's Den. And so Kevin O'Leary was the dragon still at the time. It's a few years ago, obviously, because he was on Shark Tank and now he's moved from there. But he looked at them and he said, come on, ladies, you know how brutally honest this guy can be? He was brutally honest with them. What are you doing here? And they got him down on stage. He tried on the gloves and he became a convert. He loved them. And they were asking for 10% of their business for $50,000. He said, done. I'm in. And usually Kevin wants 50% or more so he can control the business, but he recognized how smart these ladies were as business people. So he said, okay, fine, there's 10%, $50,000. I'll open up my contacts to you and we'll see what we can do. Lo and behold, Home Depot came a knocking and said, we love your gloves, lady. Here's a purchase order for $400,000. And they go, oh, fantastic. But what the heck are we going to do? We're just a startup. We have no money.
Yeah, they got
How
a
are we
good
going to
problem
manage
to deal
this?
with.
Yeah, pretty darn tough. So they said, well, we can qualify for a small loan, $50,000, because we're a startup. Not enough money to cover this off. What else can we do? We can sell more equity in our business, but then we're giving up a lot of our business for a bit more money. And that's a very expensive way to finance your business because your shares are going to be worth more down the road as your business grows. What else can we do? So fortunately, we found each other. Liquid Capital, Dig It with Claudia Harvey. And they said, we understood where their needs were. They needed to buy the inventory and they need to pay off that inventory. So we do inventory financing. And as a result, what we did was we did a financing tool called PO financing, where we could buy their inventory and we pay for it through a letter of credit. And it's like a certified check on the retail side. But what the difference is, it stipulates exactly what's on the order. So that if the vendor does not comply with what's on the order, right number of gloves, right sizes, right colors, whatever it is in this case, if they don't comply, the money that's placed in an escrow account, a bank account that's reserved for that vendor, but they can't touch until they fulfill the order. So if they do not fulfill the order correctly, no money's released. So it does two things, this letter of credit. It protects the vendor from the startup company they don't know. They now know that they will get paid because the money's in an escrow account. Reassures the vendor. What it does for Claudia and her other co-founder is if these containers come all the way from China to Canada and it's garbage, and if they had paid the vendor ahead of time, how are they going to get their money back? Very difficult with that much water in between the two continents. So this letter of credit reassures my clients that if garbage comes, no money's released and they're protected. If it comes and they're happy, that being that their customer they're selling it to is happy with these goods, then the money's released and it's all making this transaction work smoothly. So they did not have the money in the bank. We came in with our letter of credit via the purchase order financing, paid for these goods to the Chinese vendor. Everybody's happy. Comes Home Depot, gets the goods, and they say, terrific. We like these goods. We'll accept them into inventory. So how does the inventory get paid off? So because we've had this big loan out there for this $400,000 purchase order. So what happens is we take this invoice that's going to Home Depot from the Dig It people who supplied the gloves, Claudia Harvey, and what we do is we buy her invoice, advance her the money. So there's a difference between the invoice value and the cost of goods from the Chinese vendors. That difference can be used not only to pay off all that inventory, but the difference between the cost of goods and the invoice price goes into Claudia's bank account at Dig It. So now they've got money for operating expenses. It could be for salaries, it could be more inventory, whatever it takes. It's their money to work with to grow their business. So it helps them knowing that no money's at risk if the vendor doesn't supply the goods. By buying the invoice, not only do we advance the money, but we put credit insurance on any invoice we factor, which means should their customer go bankrupt, they're covered for 90% of the value of the invoice. And that means any customer in Canada or any customer in US, because we work in both countries. So it allows them to fulfill this Home Depot order, both in the Canada and in the US, so that they can grow their business. And we did this a bunch of times. We worked with them for, I don't know, almost a year, 18 months, so that they could grow to the next level, build their financial statements, look very attractive to the bank. Because banks need their requirements fulfilled. You know, like why an alternative lender? Well, if you're a young company and don't have strong financial statements or 2 years of financial statements, very difficult to get money from the bank. Not government programs, but money from the bank. If you are in arrears with CRA, HST, payroll deductions, things like that, corporate tax. If you're in arrears for any of those, banks don't like it, BDC does not like it, and it's difficult to get money, if any at all, when you're in that situation. What if you're growing rapidly? Banks have a tolerance to how much growth they can take in a year. If you grow too fast, then they'll say, no, slow it down, you're going to run out of cash. Whereas in the scenario I just described with Digit and Claudia Harvey, where we're buying the goods from China, or we can buy the goods anywhere in the world through these letter of credits, that is very rapid growth. And we've done this multiple times. And it's too difficult for a bank to keep up with, because the risk level for them is too high and it fits outside their box that they work in. Whereas we can do it because they've got good customers, Home Depot in this case, who can afford to pay Digit's invoice. So 3 areas where I shared that you can't get monies from the bank: rapid growth, CRA issues, or not strong enough financials. I'll throw a 4th one in. If your credit score is weak, either as a business or as the business owner, again, it's difficult to get monies from the bank or BDC. Whereas we look at it differently. We don't need business plans. It's who are your customers, and if they're good and they can pay your invoices, let's keep talking, because we can help fund that. So those were 2 case studies where you had a company with people and they needed cash flow, and the customers were taking too long, and we factored the invoices in the best broadcast scenario. The second case study I shared with you was whether the company was a startup like Digit or an existing company, but they just can't get the monies to afford to pay their vendors to grow their business. I shared the PO financing so we can do that to buy the inventory, as well as factor the invoices to pay off that inventory financing loan and improve the cash flow cycle.
Hey.
Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, it really is inspiring, and to see your passion and hear how you're helping people, not only with, part of their solution, but things they probably wouldn't have even thought of that they needed to consider. You are offering suggestions to them on, and I think that's amazing. It's a lot of value added, and they're fortunate to have you there to help them along and keep their business growing and thriving. And like you said, not having to spend a majority of their time worrying about those things, where they can do what they're good at, which is, be innovative and get their product out there. And that's amazing.
No, thank you, Gretchen. Yes, it does. After working corporate for so many years, and you're trying to keep the shareholders happy at a head office somewhere in the world, to be able to do this and impact an actual business, the employees and their families, it's a great feeling.
That's fantastic. Wonderful. Well, I think you kind of answered everything I would be thinking of. It was just the only other thing I was had in mind too is sometimes people that I deal with on the mortgage side, they have to, if they have, say, a bank or BDC where they're sometimes having a personal lien put on them because of a business issue. Is that similar, different, kind of a broad topic, but is there any way you can help people that, because that's a negative, right? Sometimes they don't want that personal lien when they might be needing to buy a new home or something like that.
Right. So yeah, liens can happen in business, and they come from different sources. A lien could be in the way of you're in arrears with CRA, and they will notify you that you're in arrears, and you develop a repayment plan with the CRA. So you may not be free and clear, but you still owe the money to CRA. As I cited earlier, yeah, we can still work with that type of a scenario where we help them get that repaid back to CRA through our funding. So now the cash is moving quicker. They have the monies to do things like that. So depending on the type of lien, we can work on it. If it's construction, and that's a very risky type of area with liens, that can be a little bit more difficult to deal with.
All right. Well, that's good to know, because I do have clients who get in those situations too. So I'll remember to reach out to you sometimes on those scenarios. That's great. And do you have any advice in general about financing and how businesses should approach it maybe differently, or things to think of or avoid?
Sure. with respect to financing, what you see on Shark Tank or Dragon's Den is true. A lot of business owners will come to me and start hyping me on their business. I don't need the hype. I just need the facts. And I love their passion. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, okay, that's nice. That's a possibility, but let's see how real that possibility is. So make sure your finances are up to date. You know, any lender, be it a bank, BDC, alternative lender like myself, we want to see your financials. Yes, I said the financials aren't as important with me as compared to a bank in terms of determining how much you get for a loan if you qualify. But what's important is how's your business being run? And your finances will tell a lot in that regard. So if your finances aren't up to date, you're not going to get money from a lender, to be honest with you. You know, it doesn't have to be all up to date by a CPA. You can do last year's finances are completed and closed and done with a CPA, but you at least have interims for this year so we know business is still humming nicely for you. The second point I'd like to share in this regard is because business owners don't necessarily know finance as well as a finance person, and you can't blame them because I don't know their business as well as they do. Where I'm going is a lot of times people come to me as business owners and say, I need this much money. And I look at them and I say, what do you need the money for? Because realistically, I don't want to give you money. If you don't have to have it and you can operate, operate. But what I understand from their business and what they're sharing with me is instead of having a piece of money this big, if they can turn their money quicker, they need less of it, which means it costs less money for them. So they might only need this much versus this much. And I've talked to business owners like that with a cash conversion cycle, i.e., how much inventory do you have to buy? How long does it take for you to pay your vendor? How much terms will they give you? How long does it sit in your warehouse? I'm using general terms here. And then how long does it take for you to sell it? How long does it take for your customers to pay you? So if you can get your customers to pay you faster and you can take longer to pay your vendors, you need less money. It's just simple math. I'm not saying to hurt anybody on either side. Don't get me wrong, but that determines how much money you need to operate. So that's why in some cases, you don't need this much, you only need that much, and it costs you less money. So with my type of financing, it's play as you pay, or play as you pay as you play, I should say, meaning you only need this much, that's all we give you, and you use it for that period of time, and then it goes away and it comes back when you need it. So it's very flexible.
That sounds smart. And you help people not bite off more than they need.
Exactly. It's a different mindset. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, so I think in total you have 8 different types of solutions, and I think you probably covered them all. But if you maybe want to just give a quick summary of that again, that would be great.
All right, sure. Beyond the factoring and buying invoices with credit insurance, beyond the purchase order financing, we have a different type of inventory financing that I won't get into details here, but I'm saying there's options here. Another interesting thing that we do is we do equipment financing. The banks, BDC do that. Okay, no difference. But what we can do with that is something that the banks and BDC can't do. And it's called a sale leaseback. Sometimes businesses get capital rich. They have lots of assets, lots of equipment, but not enough money. And what we can do is come in, buy those assets. If they own it outright, the equipment, we come in, we buy it, and we lease it back to them. So now they've got all this money injected back into the business so they can operate. And I'm actually working with a company right now who's doing very well, but they've just bought too many assets and they can't get enough bank financing for it. So we'll come in, we'll buy these equipment and then lease it back to them. And now they've got this money to carry on to do what they need to do in their operations. Another thing that we can do is something called asset-based lending, like the banks can do, but it's, we look at the building, we look at the equipment, we look at the finished good inventory, we look at the property, and we can then design a financing tool like an operating line of credit to help that business grow. So 8 tools provides me creative insight. So understand the business, what the business owner is trying to do, and then be able to provide potentially a financing tool to help that business owner grow. And if I can't do it, maybe I can refer them on to someone in my referral network beyond Liquid Capital that can help them achieve their goals.
I think that's amazing. I'm very excited about what you do, and I'm very excited to connect people with you going forward that are really going to benefit from what you're offering. And I love your passion and that you're giving them a lot of value add because you understand business, which is excellent.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to help. Yes,
Great.
I
And how
appreciate
can
you.
people reach you?
I am on LinkedIn, Greg Norris. They can reach me at gnorris@liquidcapitalcorp.com for my email. And also my phone number is 905-717-8324. I have a website as well where they can see it, liquid www.lcadvisorscorp.com, so they can see me there as well.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of your great information and tips. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you very much. My pleasure as well. All the best to you and to all your loyal fans that watch you on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Bye.
Bye-bye.